Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Topher Drives, where we have a bit of a special commute for you in store today. I'm headed out to Fifteen52 Motors to do some bring a trailer photography, and this is the car that we will be taking. This is a 2016 Ford Focus RS, and it's my dad's car. He got this in 2016. He's the original owner, and I helped him order this brand new from Ford the year prior. And well, he's had it ever since. He's done a couple of modifications, and I've been wanting to film this for the channel for the longest time. So I finally saw an opportunity this morning to take it along with us on one of our lovely sunrise morning commutes. And well, I figured I would show you what this car is like and tell you kind of the story of how it came to be. But first we'll talk about the Focus RS and what it was. So this was Ford's hottest hatch ever in the US. This is powered by a 2.3 liter EcoBoost turbocharged 4-cylinder. It makes 350 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. All of them were all-wheel drive. All of them had 6-speed manual transmissions. They were only available in a few colors. Nitrous blue, there was a gray, a white, a black, and in 2018 you could get it in red. But they really didn't make a ton of these cars. They were only made for 3 model years, this one being a 2016, the first model year. And I mean, this was a pretty big deal because we had never had any RS products in the US until this car. Over in Europe, they had had them since the 1960s, and we said, where is ours? And Ford said, here you go, you can have it, but only for 3 years. And then when the Focus unfortunately was discontinued in America in 2018, the RS went with it, and I don't know that we'll ever see anything like this ever again. So this is a pretty special car, and of course at the time when we ordered this, we didn't really know that it would be so limited, but I am sure glad we decided to go ahead and get one. My dad had been driving a Ford Fusion for the past couple of years, and when this car was announced, I was like, Dad, come on, you have to get one of these. It's not that expensive. It was like, I think they announced it would be like $35,000. It's practical because it's all-wheel drive. It's a hatchback. It'll do everything you need it to do. And somehow, as a high schooler, I was like 16 or 17 at the time, somehow I convinced him to place an order for this car. And he only did 2 options, one of which were the upgraded black wheels, which are no longer on here, and the other one was a moonroof because he does like a good moonroof. So that's how this car came to be. It has the RS1 package, so we don't have heated seats or Alcantara or navigation or anything like that, but we do have a Sony sound system, which is okay. We'll see if we have time to test that later on today. Let's talk you through the modifications we have on this car. This was another modification of my doing because, well, I was a big Ken Block fan, RIP, but we actually got these before he passed. This is a set of 1552 Turbomacs. They're 18s, and then we wrapped them in a set of Firestone Indy500 tires, 245 40/18 squared setup. So you can see our fitment here, just about perfect. I actually had my buddy Stu help me with sizing and things, but this is kind of the look that we were going for, and I think it looks fantastic. It just makes it look like a rally car. So that's one of the modifications, and the only other one is quite a significant other one, is a Borla Atak exhaust, a full catback. And some of you know the Focus RS was loud from the factory, but now this just sounds like it's straight piped. It still has cats, but you can see here the large black-tipped Borla exhaust. This was my dad's doing. I had nothing to do with the exhaust. He decided he wanted his car to be louder, so he went ahead and did that himself. But that's kind of where the car sits today. We've had it since 2016. It's got 35,000 miles on it. It's pretty minty. But okay, cool. Let's walk you around this thing real quick. We'll pop the hood. We'll show you this 2.3. And then obviously, I should already be leaving the parking lot right now. I'm running a couple of minutes late, but we'll work with it. It's fine. Okay, cool. Now, normally, from the factory, this would not have hood struts. I forgot. There are actually 3 modifications on this car. These Ford Performance, I think are they Ford Performance? I don't know. There's some kind of aftermarket hood strut that we put on here. That's a pretty recent modification within the last few months, but keeps the hood open. You don't have to use the prop rod here. And you can see Ford Performance engine cover. The RS got a special open intake here, so you can hear those wonderful turbo noises. Honestly, a pretty nice looking engine bay for the time. I always have to remind myself that this car is going on 10 years old at this point. Pretty crazy. It still looks quite modern. In some ways, I feel like this car kind of kicked all the other manufacturers in the butt, woke them up, and let them know that they should be making hot compacts like this, just in time for Ford to completely drop out of the segment. So funny how that works. We also got rid of the Focus badge on the back here. I think it looks a lot cleaner with just that RS badge. In the back, of course, it's still a Ford Focus. My dad went through a phase where he was golfing, and with these seats down, it fit, I think, multiple sets of golf clubs. Very practical back here, a ton of room. And in the RS, you don't get a spare, but you do get a goop kit, fix-a-flat. You've got your Sony amp back there for the sound system. Special RS stamped little box there to let you know it is unique to the RS. A couple little storage cubbies under there as well, but I mean, the Focus was just such a cool, good car that existed in the US for just about 20 years. It was here, and it was sad to see it go away so quickly. Take a look at the back seat. Again, this doesn't have the optional Alcantara seats, but honestly, I kind of like the base seats better because they are just cloth, but they have these nice blue details in the middle that the Alcantara seats did not have. So a bit more dimension on the basic interior. And shoot, even in 2016, Ford was kind of dressing this interior up. We have some blue stitching on these door panels that would otherwise just be kind of molded black plastic. And sat behind myself at 5'11", I do actually have plenty of room in all dimensions back here, headroom and legroom. Not as big as you would see in like a new Honda Civic or something like that, but for the time, I think it was just fine. Taking a look up here, we'll talk a bit more about that once we jump up there, but yeah, pretty cool cockpit. RS also got this unique high-rise spoiler, which I think looks fantastic. Unique front and rear bumpers. And then this nitrous blue paint was exclusive to the car as well. So, all right, well, let's just go ahead, hop in, and go for a drive. We'll do our commute. You can see these Recaro seats up front. These were a bit of a complaint for some people, pretty similar to the seats you would have found in the Focus ST as well. In fact, they may be exactly the same, just trimmed differently. But a lot of people said these were way too slim, they hugged you too tight, and my biggest complaint with them is that you sit up a little bit too high. I wish these seats went down a bit lower. In fact, I feel like there was a recall for this, and the recall was done, but the seat still doesn't go down far enough, so there's that. Dashboard, everything like that, pretty similar to just a regular Focus, but you did get a unique blue-stitched RS branded steering wheel. You got a bunch of blue details on your shift knob, your shift boot, blue gauges, blue gauge cluster, or blue auxiliary gauges, I should say. Okay, I'm going to start this with the door open. It is warm already, so it's not going to be a super dramatic cold start, but I want you guys to hear this Borla Atak exhaust. See there, 35,888 miles. I don't know what made him go with the loudest exhaust possible, but we'll go ahead and demo that for you now. I'll give it a couple revs. The famous line with the Focus RS, Rajner, when this thing was being developed was pops and burbles, and this car kind of like pioneered that and made it the norm for hot hatchbacks. So there's no tune on this car. This is the factory tune. This is kind of what this car did, how it behaved from the factory, but now it's amplified from this Borla Atak. My goodness. How many people I woke up this morning when I was going to get this car from my parents' house at 9 o'clock in the morning. Up here, the layout is pretty simple. We have these nicely placed vents. We have the, I think Sync 3 is what they called this system. No navigation in this car, no Apple CarPlay. So it's a pretty simple infotainment system overall. We probably won't mess with it too much today because it's kind of glitching out. When I turn it on, it won't let me turn the volume all the way down. So I don't know what's going on with that. We've got a USB-A port here, physical climate control panel. It is automatic, you know, all the stuff. Some cup holders, center console, and I mean, that's really just about it. Driver's compartment, we'll talk about that, I guess, once we are on the highway. Automatic headlights, and a nice flat bottom steering wheel. All right, let's hit the road, because I want to drive this thing. Let's just drive it in sport mode, because that's, you get the most dramatic exhaust note when you're in sport mode. This Borla Atak is still valved, so it does open up in sport. And we'll switch it back to regular once we're like on the highway. But for right now, we'll leave it in sport. We do have a backup camera. I think this is right before they became mandated. So it's not the best quality, but it does the job. It's got lines that move for you and stuff. And this clutch has a bit of heft to it. A bit more heft than you would see in a modern hot compact car. Actually, I can call this a hot hatch, because this is a hatchback. Haha. That's insane. Very touchy brake pedal in this car. I remember driving this as like a 17-year-old and almost sending myself through the windshield because of the brakes. This 2.3 liter, pretty free revving, easy to rev match, all that kind of thing. And the car is pretty easy to drive in general. I mean, pretty much once you get to this point in the 20 teens, manual cars were pretty straightforward. Shifter's a little rubbery, but similar to the Elantra N, it lets you just absolutely bang gears. All right, well, we'll tell you kind of the story about the car here while we're going 24 miles per hour. So when my dad got this car, it was his only vehicle, which means he daily drove this, I think for the first like 3 or 4 years that he had it. So we put snow tires on it, he drove it through the winter, all that stuff. And then around 2020, I think he realized that he no longer wanted to daily drive this car anymore, so he went and got an F-150. But he did put up with this car every day for 4 years, and it was bone stock during that time. He didn't start modifying it until he had another car. So that made it a little bit more bearable. It wasn't as loud, of course. One thing this car was notorious for, though, was just having a very stiff ride, and, well, that is true. It's very bouncy. You know, when I talk about the ride on new cars, and I use the word crashy, this is kind of the car that I have in mind. Get some heat into these Indy500s. We do have a shift light built into this too, a little RS logo that lights up on the cluster when it's time to change gear. I love this car as kind of like a last hurrah from Ford. I think internally, of course, they knew that this was going to be the swan song hot hatch, so they just went all out with this thing. Okay, should have some heat in these tires. Like I said earlier, easy to bang off gears in this thing. Yeah. It's just so entertaining. It has such a soul and a unique character. That's why I love it so much. Even though lots of the dashboard materials are vibrating right now. All right, let's get on the highway and do a commute. I gotta say, I remember this car being, like, interior-wise louder, but wind noise and road intrusion doesn't really seem to be horrible considering the tire compound that we have on this car, as well as just the fact that it's an 8-year-old Ford Focus. I feel like it's really not too bad. We're gonna slow down for a second, play the sound of our people. Because why not, right? There's nobody behind us. Okay. I don't know that I would, like, trust myself to daily drive this thing. This is a treat because, you know, everything I drive is just brand new, and with the exception of some cars like the Elantra N, some AMG products, nothing is as rowdy as this. And I mean, really nothing, because this has aftermarket parts on it. But it's such a blast to drive this thing. Okay. Let's go out of sport mode. We do also have a couple more drive modes: track mode, drift mode, and normal. We're gonna go in normal here. Try and save ourselves a bit of a headache. I don't know if you guys can see on the camera how much this is bouncing. This section of highway in particular is terrible in this car. You guys see me drive this section of highway all the time in all sorts of different cars. None of them bounce quite like this. I don't know what was up with the damping on this. I don't know how it was allowed to leave the factory with suspension like this. And the funny part is, this is the soft setting. This is the soft setting. I can push this little button on the end of the turn signal stalk. That will put me into stiff suspension. And then my head is about to hit the ceiling. Can you guys see this? I don't know if the GoPro is... I don't know if the GoPro is stabilizing this enough or not. This is hysterical. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to throw up. Don't want to throw up in my dad's car. All right. So, suspension-wise, I'd imagine on a racetrack, it's excellent. However, daily driving it, it's a bit stiff and crashy. So, just something to keep in mind. You know, thinking to, like, the Topher's Civic Type R ownership, he has a damper module in that car from the Integra Type S, which essentially tunes out a lot of the stiffness and crashiness of the Civic Type R. So I wonder if there's one for the Ford Focus RS you could get, because this is, I mean, it's really is unacceptable for a street car to behave like this. And to think my dad daily drove this for 4 years, it's so funny. You know, I'm not saying in any way that you shouldn't buy a Ford Focus RS, because it's an excellent car, but if you live near a section of highway that was paved a bit wrong, I suppose it's not really the car's fault, but, you know, just kind of keep that in mind. Ride's a bit bouncy. Does not take away from my love for this car, so don't think that I'm hating on this car for a second, because I'm not. I love it so much. And this car meant so much to me as a teenager who I loved cars so much growing up, and as much as my parents supported me, like, you know, they never really had cars that were that entertaining. They drove Jeeps and trucks and things that were whatever. But when my dad got this car, it was like a whole other level of awesomeness, because that meant that my dad had a cool car too, and I could brag to all my friends that my dad drives a Focus RS, and I don't know. It was cool. And then, of course, I got to drive it a bunch too. I mean, I've been driving this car since I was 17. I haven't been driving it as much lately, just because I've got so much else going on. I've got my own cars that I don't even really drive. but just the existence of this car is excellent. So, and Dad, I know you're watching, sorry, I completely ruined your seating position. Steering on this car, very eager. Small movements in this thing do send you flying on the highway, but steering feel overall is excellent. You guys saw through those corners back there. I didn't really talk about it because I was listening to the exhaust, but pretty progressive feel. It's weighted nicely. It's on the heavier side, of course. And with this being all-wheel drive, you don't have a great turning radius. All right, sport mode. Okay, while bouncy, the suspension in this car is insanely impressive when you chuck it around a corner like that. I mean, zero body roll whatsoever. And this feels like a track car. And I think that was kind of Ford's goal with this car, was just to make it as insane as they could possibly make it and still make it still make it road legal. Fantastic brakes. I mean, out of this world brake performance. We've got Brembos on the front. You guys saw those, maybe. I don't know if you can see them behind the Turbomacs, but really, really good. Bright blue painted Brembo brakes. Rear brakes are nothing special, but you get plenty of bite from this brake pedal. Really close to the top. You really hardly have to get into it at all. How do you think we work the cruise control in this car? You probably hit on, yep, and then you hit set. There we go. Easy to operate cruise control. We've got volume controls as well for the Sony system here on the steering wheel. If I have a chance, I'll put in a little insert when I'm on my way home with a bit of a sound system test on this Sony system. That'll be at the end of the video if you want to stick around for that. The Recaro seat, while it doesn't go down far enough, it actually is pretty dang supportive. And I'm going to be straightforward here and honest. You do have to be a bit of a smaller individual to fit in this seat. I mean, I'm 5'11" and like 150 pounds, 160 pounds, and I barely have room to move in between these bolsters, and they are non-adjustable. This is a fixed seat for the most part. It only moves forward, back, up, down, and then you can move the backrest. That is it. There's no lumbar adjustment, there's no bolster adjustment, nothing fancy like that. So sit in one before you just bid on one on Bring a Trailer or something and get it shipped to your house. Make sure you are comfortable in this thing. That was the biggest complaint with this car from the factory. But I feel supported enough. I mean, I've been sitting in this thing for close to an hour at this point, from the time I went and picked it up to right now, and it's pretty much okay. And the seat is okay. Interior ergonomics, seating position, I mentioned earlier, I kind of wish the seat would go a bit lower down. I mean, really just kind of that much. Give me another inch to go down and I would be happy with that. You do have a center console armrest, but it is set super far back, so you can't really realistically drive with both hands and rest your right elbow. You can rest your left elbow, and there's actually a good amount of cushion in this door panel, more than I was expecting. So you're pretty comfortable in that aspect. Visibility is great out of this thing. Really good visibility out of the back, with this being a hatchback, of course, and with the seating position being a bit high. You can see pretty well over the hood as well and all around you when you're checking blind spots. Just under 80 miles an hour here, 75 miles an hour, revved just under 3,000 RPM. This car is rated in the high 20s for highway fuel economy, and I actually should be able to check here and see average. Okay, so here's a normal trip for my dad. He resets his trip when he gets fuel. 21.9 mpg. I'm sure I demoted that slightly with my driving today, so it was probably somewhere more around like 23. Not too bad. We do run premium fuel only in this car. plenty of torque. You know, obviously 350 is not what it's putting to the road. With this being all-wheel drive, you do lose a little bit, but my butt dyno tells me it's somewhere around like 290, something like that, 300. There's another Ford from the era in 2014. They call that Gotta Have It Green, I think that was called. Is that a Boss 302? Yeah. Two of the best colors Ford ever made. That green and nitrous blue. I'll be honest, I would enjoy just the raw nature of this car on a morning commute. It would liven you up a bit. That was kind of the argument I used for the Elantra N. Was just kind of the entertainment aspect of this car, of that car. Both cars, I suppose. Alrighty guys, well, there's a morning commute in a 2016 slightly modified Ford Focus RS, one of the best hot hatchbacks of all time. I'll go ahead and say it. Not a day goes by where I don't wish that Ford still made vehicles like this. This was such a good era for Ford performance in general. They were making a lot of really cool stuff around this time. And well, this was, I think, maybe the coolest thing that they did, just because it was so unconventional for the US market. And the fact that we were kind of given this treat for a few years. 2016 and 17 cars being the same. 2018, you could have red, it had a black roof, it had carbon fiber on the inside, and it got a front limited slip. So the 2018s are probably the most desirable out of all of them. But we're in a really good time in the enthusiast market right now. There's still a lot that exist currently in 2024. But if you don't like any of those, other options do exist on the used market, and I think this is one of, if not the best choice. Cool guys, let's breathe in some black smoke here. But that's gonna do it for us today in the Ford Focus RS. I hope you enjoyed this special little commute, and thanks to my dad for tossing me the keys this morning. Okay, let's go ahead and shut this thing off, and we'll give you one last walk around this Focus RS, and that'll be it for us today. This nitrous blue just pops in the sun. Gorgeous flake on this. I meant to show this off in the beginning of the video. The flake is unbelievable in this car. All right, well, that'll do it. I had fun this morning. I hope you guys had some fun watching as well and riding along with me as always. But that'll be it. Thank you all again so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.
You're just a pair of
as you can see, they're just about average performance, but I mean, pretty decent for the time. You know, Ford used these Sony systems for a number of years. We have tweeters, we have plenty of power here in this system, and I wouldn't really have expected anything better for the time. You know, sound systems have come some way in the past 8 years, but I think for what it is, this system is completely fine. Gives you everything that you would need out of a Ford Focus.